Welcome to Whole Team Eats Podcast, a 24/8 media production. Ever wonder who trains your favorite athlete? Join Tim Miller as he takes a look at the behind-the-scenes training of professional and collegiate athletes. Tim connects with trainers, athletes, and others in the sports community to share their stories. This podcast is dedicated to highlighting the work of athletes and trainers to inspire action and build community.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to an all-new episode of Whole Team Eats Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 8. I'm your host, Tim Miller, and on this show, I sit down with Tracy Ford, CEO of Ford Sports Performance. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, Tracy had very limited access to training during his athletic career. Tracy played college football at the University of Idaho and Portland State, where Tracy was fortunate to be around some great coaches and mentors. It was these coaches turned mentors that helped shape Tracy not only as an athlete, but also as a future business owner training high-end level athletes. On the show, we discuss Tracy's Combine program and how it is part of the process to produce elite-level talent each year. Tracy and his team have built a brand and training programs that help young athletes elevate their game. Tracy is passionate about his grassroots business by developing and retaining local talent from youth athletes to professional in his home state of Washington. It is my pleasure to introduce Tracy Ford, CEO of Ford Sports Performance, to the show. Tracy, welcome.
How's it going?
It's going great. How's normally where a lot of my episodes start is just to ask you how training has been to start 2023.
It's been going good, man. So we had a pretty good draft class. A lot of guys really ran well. Obviously, Keith Ringo ran the fastest 40 time from any player over 200 pounds at the Combine at 4.36. And we had another kid at Oregon State run 4.39, Trayshawn Harrison. And we just had another kid dominate his pro day at Nebraska. Oliver Martin, 41-inch vert, 4.44 40, 11.2 broad jump. So, everything's going good. We got another pro day to go tomorrow, University of Washington with Jordan Perriman. We're locked and loaded and ready to go.
Yeah, you're right in the middle of your training with your Combine guys. How big is your Combine program at this point?
This year, obviously it's the meat and potatoes of our program. In the essence of, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And in the game right now, where the training industry has been so saturated, this is one thing that you are who you are, right? And where trainers really get put to the test, because everybody can say they can get guys right and this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, can you get these guys to run fast? You know what I mean? Can you get these guys to jump high? Can you guys get these guys to be more explosive? Everybody can do footwork and drills and stuff for Instagram. But at the end of the day, do you have the scientific methods and a system in place to really help these guys become better athletes? And there's no better way to do it than the NFL Combine, where, you know what I mean? But like I said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Yeah, and your Combine program, just as we've started to get connected, you have a very robust Combine program that you work with, and you have some of the top athletes from some of the top Power 5 schools that work with you. So. We always follow you come Combine time just to see what you have going on with the guys that you deal with. And the results speak for themselves to your training, and you have some of the guys performing in the top of their class or for top of their 40 time or broad jump or any of the other measurements that they test for at the Combine. You seem to be right there at the top with a lot of your athletes. But just to take a step back, we're going to talk about your training a little bit later. Can you tell us about your background, kind of where you grew up, playing sports, and then education, and where you went to school? So I'm born and raised in Seattle, Washington. So I'm a Washington boy. When we talk about putting on for the Pacific Northwest and doing something different, I'm not somebody that moved out here because I couldn't hack it in my own hometown and had to build something new. No, this is exactly where I'm from. We were locked in and really motivated to show the different type of athletes that we have in this state and in this region and really put us on the map. I think everybody knows about Seattle with Seattle basketball, with the Jamal Crawfords, Brandon Roys, and Nate Robinsons and Isaiah Thomas, all those guys, but what people don't understand is the culture of football.
And so, when we brought forward Sports Performance in here, we wanted to show that culture of football and the talent that we have in this area. And I think we've done that. We've done that quite a lot. The guys like, Miles Jack, Buda Baker, Kyler Gordon, Joe Tryon, Miles Gaskin, Saban Ahmed. I mean, these guys are, guys that are, from the soil. Keely Ringo, JT Tuimoloau, who should be, probably a top 5 pick from Ohio State next year. These guys are all from the state of Washington, from the soil, from the program, from the home team. So, we built that culture with football in this area. So that's kind of what we want to do because, like I said, I am a Northwest bred kid. And, as far as football, obviously I've, played football at Portland State University. Before that I was at the University of Idaho. So I had the, really good opportunity to work with some great coaches. My time at University of Idaho, I spent 3 different head coaches in 3 years, right? So it was not ideal, but, looking back at it now as a 36-year-old business owner, I look back at it and I think those things really helped me. I was able to, be able to build relationships with guys like Nick Holt, Dennis Erickson, Jerry Glanville at Portland State, Mouse Davis, who was the inventor of the run and shoot offense. You know what I mean? So understanding these different systems and having relationships with these coaches that are some of the young guys that are coaching, you'd be surprised. The head coach at Oregon State, Jonathan Smith, his first coaching job was at the University of Idaho as the quarterback coach. And his first year coaching was my freshman year playing. So just seeing how everybody's evolved, it's been awesome. You know what I mean? So it's been a huge blessing, and it's been able to be a huge key to help me get these other kids to the next level, right? The high school kids to the next level and get them to college because of the relationships that have been built. So I said that's kind of just the background on me. Obviously, I am a football guy, so that's my niche. But obviously, speed is a big factor, which is why we do put a lot of pride in our track and field program.
Yeah, and when you're talking about performance and building relationships, relationships are key. A lot of our trainers tell us that. But what would you speak to the importance of having a mentor? And I'm sure you've had some mentors in your not only athletic career but business career as well. Can you speak to some of those mentors that you might have had or assistants you've had along the way, learning from others?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest key, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So I try to surround myself with great senior counsel. Great leadership as far as my team currently, but obviously starting with some of my mentors, Chad Ike, who's in Arizona right now, who's who I trained with coming out of college. He worked with Adrian Wilson, Larry Fitzgerald, a lot of those guys when the Cardinals had that run. So he's just been a huge mentor to me, not only as a trainer but as a father, as a husband. He's done a phenomenal job with his business. And just understanding the family atmosphere that he built up with his program. I knew I wanted to do something very similar in the state of Washington because I knew there was the need to do it. And so, again, the approach that I took, more importantly, was, like I said, the combine, because that's when you can really establish yourself as a guy in this industry, right? You show proof to your work, your before and after pictures of what you got a guy for 6 to 8 weeks. And I got this guy looking like he was just working as a janitor, and he leaves looking like he's an Olympian bodybuilder. You know what I mean? And on top of that, he's running as fast as an Olympian. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that right there just shows proof to the pudding that, you know what I mean, what we're doing works. So I hold a lot of that to, like I said, Chad Ike, who's, a great mentor to me and has always helped me. Coach Ronnie Harrison, he's actually the head track and field coach at Cal right now. He does a phenomenal job. He's the sprint coach there. He's another guy that really helped me. He was also my coach when I ran track at Portland State. So just being able to stay in tune with him, he's one of the very few that are level 1 USA track and field certified in the game. So having guys like that in your corner that you can call on and rely on and get senior counsel for, I think is a huge stepping stone to anybody's success.
Yeah, absolutely. A mentor plays a huge role in the success of any athlete or business owner for that, as you just discussed. But one thing that you mentioned was you take a lot of pride. It seems like at least you take a lot of pride in building a program where you're originally from, which is Washington. And we have a lot of different trainers that we connect with and have on the show. And not all of them have built something where they are originally from. Some have, but it seems like when we're just connecting with folks, typical training spots are the Floridas. You know, you got Miami, you got Texas, you got Louisiana, you got California. It doesn't come top of mind to think of Washington as one of those training hotbeds or locations. What does it mean to you to build a training facility and a very successful training facility and program at that in your home state of Washington?
Well, I think it speaks volumes to the results, right? At the end of the day, like you mentioned, we're not in one of the sunshine states, and that's one reason I knew we needed to do is we needed to keep our own kids home, right? For me, I was a kid from the Northwest where there was no spot for me to train when I was coming out in pre-draft in 2009, right? So I had to go out and find a way, right? So I had to move to Arizona, do these things, and I'm glad I did. Like I said, I met Chad Ike, and he forever blessed me. However, it speaks volumes to the results when guys, literally the Bobby Wagners, the DK Metcalfs, some of these guys. They have enough money in the world to train anywhere they want, right? So when the guys that are serious and that are locked in, and honestly, I look at the guys that are, serious about really perfecting their craft, they choose to train in cold ass Seattle in the winter, right? Where it's not sexy, right? It's not sexy. The club scene ain't hot. They're not going to be popping bottles. They're going to be locked in. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with pre-draft, right? It speaks volumes to Keely Ringo, right? I mean, this kid's a projected top 20 pick. He could SEC. He could have did anything he want, but he stayed true to his roots. He stayed true to his roots of where he grew up at in the program that he was with because he trusted in our program. And I think, like I said, it speaks volumes to the actual work because this is not a place where you can have a lot where it's play. It's somewhere where you're going to lock in, really be honed in on what you want to do to get better. And you can focus and there's no distractions. So being able to build something like that in the state of Washington, I think, like I said, just going back, it just speaks volumes to the results, right? And, we go by the motto of you can't cheat the grind. It knows how much you've invested. And it's never going to give you nothing that you haven't worked for. So we stand firm to that and pushing our athletes to the next level. Also pushing our trainers to be better trainers. Pushing our staff to be better, to be more professional, everything from the ground up. So, like I said, we're doing it. And I think what's more important is the kids that have came out the program starts literally nobody in the country, the Exos, the anywhere else, the Bomberitos, Tom Shaws, and they all do phenomenal job. These guys do phenomenal job. These systems are in place to do phenomenal job. But nobody is intact with the grassroots like FSP. Absolutely nobody. Nobody can take a kid from when they're in 7th and 8th grade, groom them to be an NFL All-Pro. They come back they train with you for pre-draft. We get them ready for high school. They didn't believe in themselves. Now they become a 4-star recruit and All-American. Then they continue to train with you through college, become a college All-American. Then they train with you for pre-draft and get ready to go to the combine and get drafted. Then they become NFL All-Pros. Nobody else can do that. And that's the program and the standard that we have set. And our high school kids are all seeing that. And that's why we're producing the number one player in the countries like JT Tuamalaus, the Paulo Bancheros. I mean, these guys are all from the soil, all from the program. And I don't think there's nobody else in the country that is doing it at that level from the grassroots all the way up to the pros. So that's why I do think, what we're doing and we're doing it on the upper left state in the cold. You know what I mean? So I think it is very something special and, would like to get more people to put on notice that this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and we love promoting your work because, just telling your story to our audience here on the podcast and fully understanding what you're doing from the grassroots mentality that you have with your athletes, building them from the ground up and kind of putting that foundation in place to ultimately be able to build those athletes over time. But, you mentioned that there's so many different athletes that you deal with in the combine program, but yet there's only a 6 to 8 week period that you're dealing with them. And it's validation, I would assume, for you to kind of see as you mentioned, the proof in the pudding of those results, where you have somebody come in day one and then what they look like 8 weeks later. It's almost like a transformation of those athletes. Can you talk about what it means to have your work validated by certain results with your athletes?
I think it's just, again, I'm not in this alone. I have a phenomenal staff that's there with me. John Reese, who's been with me for the past 10 years, is my right-hand man. So he's awesome, right? All of our training staff is awesome. Our director of speed, Andrew Mops, is awesome. I just think it's a collaborative effort by everybody on our staff towards one common goal, and that common goal is to give these athletes results. So I can't take the credit all entirely to myself. I've got to give credit to everybody. Everybody from our administrative staff. I think my assistant's the best assistant in the world, Val Vestman. She's not only working with me, but taking care of these kids. I say kids, but these young men, and helping these young men understand kind of who they are and get themselves on balance so they don't have to think about anything. They show up, they pull up, they got their protein shakes are there, their meals are there, everything's so scheduled in depth with them. So like I said, I can't take all the credit. We have a phenomenal team that's validated our program in a whole. So when we see the results of what they get, the before and after pictures, when they run at the combine, when they run at the pro days, it's one of those things that we just knew was going to happen because of the preparation that we put behind them. And there was a team that helped prepare them.
And how big is your team or your staff?
So our staff, when I look at our staff as a whole, right, everybody working for FSP, so we have about 8 performance coaches, probably, football coaches and all, with our 7-on-7 program, youth program. So we've got about 15 football specific coaches, about 6 people just on our administrative staff. So we have a big team that's able to operate a fully functional machine, as we call our business, that produces, high elite athletes that come out of this.
And where do you see your business right now? So you've grown over the last 10 years, but what stage would you see your business in, and where do you see your business moving forward, maybe in the next 2-3 years from now?
Well, I think we're in super growth mode, right? We're in super growth mode, and sometimes that we are growing so fast it's hard to catch up, right? So just trying to stay on top of it and continue to elevate. And for us, is we want a place where we can have really help service the kids the best of their abilities, and we want to play football in the fall, right? We want to become the IMG of the West, and I think that's where we're heading. Where we have literally our kids right now in high school playing tackle football in the spring. We're going to host a game versus Hawaii April 23rd. We'll host another team, American Collegiate Academy out of Clearwater, Florida, that will come up, and we'll play them May 7th, just so they can see those FSP helmets on the field against other schools from out of state, in the environment and the culture that we're going to bring. So, we can play a 6-game national schedule in high school and continue to breed these athletes. Because, like I said, when FSP came about, there's been more kids with more Division I offers from the SEC, Big Ten. These guys from all over the country, and there's a reason for that. And it's not a coincidence. It's FSP was built. And so we just want to be able to, continue to help these kids, right? Help these kids from an educational standpoint, make sure that we're monitoring their grades even more. We do that now with our high school kids, right? Is monitor their grades. We have an academic counselor that helps them throughout study table, helps them with the transcripts, helps them with SAT prep and all these things. But, for us, is we want to be able to have a little bit more control to be able to, like I always say, save these kids from themselves, right? Save the kids from themselves. So we give them the structure, be able to, drop your kid off at 7:30 in the morning, and by the time you pick him up at 5 o'clock, his homework's done, his school's done, his training's done, and his practice is done. You can go have dinner with your family and at no problem at 6 p.m. You know what I mean? So that's what we're building. That's what we're going through. Yes, for the next 2 years, and our plan is to try to figure out a way that we want to be able to play 6 national games in the fall of 2024, and really change the dynamic of what the game of football is, right? You look at baseball, you look at soccer, there's so many academies that are out, right? Where kids are literally getting homeschooled and they are, taking their classes, but the priority is a sport, right? The only other club sport that doesn't exist is football, right? So we want to be that. We want to be that group that is innovative enough to take the game to the next level. And I think we have the backing and the support from the right people to be able to do this.
Yeah, that's very interesting when you are trying to become the IMG of the West, right? And you're trying to build that program from the ground up. A lot of other folks in the industry, I guess, have maybe thought about that model, but you're actually executing on it. And it's, it's amazing to see what you guys have done at TSP in such a short period of time when you really think about it. But what do you think is the hardest part about motivating players, right? You have all these programs. Do you find it hard to motivate players? And is it harder to motivate younger players or college age or professional players? Are they all kind of the same?
I think it's a gift and a curse, especially where we're at as a program is, it's made it look so easy and effortless that a kid can be in our program, come in since 8th grade, go Division I, Power 5, be an All-American, and go to the NFL in 3 years, right? It's made it look so easy that sometimes kids think it's too easy, right? So they don't work as hard. They feel like if they've got the FSP brand stamped on them, that I can kind of just show up and I'm going to be great, right? So I think that's the hardest thing is just, trying to keep these kids as humble and as grounded and to understand that, man, hard work works, but if you don't work hard, none of this works, right? So just trying to keep them grounded to understand that there is levels to this, and the guys that were able to do this at a high level, put in a lot of time and sacrifice and sweat equity into something that they didn't think that was going to happen. But they believed in themselves. So I think that's probably the hardest thing is just, motivating these guys to be consistent and do it consistently from the high school kids. And even with some of our younger guys as they become pros is just motivating them to trust the process, that there is a process. Everything that they have done from the Keely Ringos, right, he's going to be a top pick we've already seen that happen in our program. Right? You're not the first, right? However, if you do the right things, that your life is going to be successful on and off the field because of the senior council that we have with the guys that have went before you. So you don't have to hear it from me. You can listen to the senior council. You can listen to Richard Sherman. You can listen to Bobby Wagner, guys that have done it and don't need anything from you. You know what I mean? So, but if you just do the plan, trust in the process, and set your goals, then your goals are meant to be accomplished. And we're there to help you guide you there, and we'll give you the script, but you just got to run the play.
Yeah, and it's great that you have that structure and guidance in place for a lot of these younger athletes. And I know you said it feels like some of that responsibility falls on your shoulders. Is once you're stamped with TSP, you have to actually go out and be consistent and do the work yourself. But just to wrap up here, I did want to ask you, one thing I like to ask a lot of our trainers is, you've obviously come through, a heck of a journey to this point. You've been training for over a decade, and you obviously have very ambitious plans for the future and the very near future at that. But what advice would you give yourself if you were starting out again, and would you change anything about your journey to this point?
I think starting out, I would just say know your worth, right? Know your worth, know your value. And don't let people take advantage of you. I think if that was one advice that I would give, it's just don't let people take advantage of you. Watch who you surround yourself and really do your real research on the people that you put around your baby, right? If anybody's business is their baby, then you got to really do your research on who you put around your baby, right? So that's probably the piece of advice that I would do is, if I would have to tell anybody else in this industry or tell myself, is just really be cautious on who you put around your business, the people that you put in your business, and also continue to just know your worth and know your value, and understand that this is a service and there are things called service fees.
Absolutely. Knowing your values is crucial. But Tracy Ford, we appreciate your time on our podcast. Whole Team Meets here today. We'll be following where you go from here. Obviously, you have a lot of plans for the near future, which we will be letting our audience know and giving them updates as we hear more from you. But once again, Tracy Ford, CEO of Ford Sports Performance. Tracy, thanks so much for coming on.
I appreciate you, Matt.